All right, guys, welcome back. I told you we'd have battle reports, so here we are, battle reports, Adepticon edition. Let's rank up. All right, guys. So, like I said, went to Adepticon about a week ago to participate in a 3,000 point tournament, and just going to go over the list here. It was a blast. I'm going to tell you now, if you can go to Adepticon, I would strongly encourage it. And I did they have events on almost every day. There was an event on Thursday, events on Friday, and then 2 events on Saturday, another event on Sunday. I mean, there was just all sorts of events. There was 3,000 points, a 1,000 point. There was a general competition where you didn't even show up with an army. You were given an army there, and you had to see how well you could play with an army you've never played before and had to play it on the fly. So, and then, of course, there was the championships, the doubles. There was a lot of stuff going on, so I would strongly encourage it. But let's go ahead and start kind of walking through my list so you know what we got here. First off, we have 2 30-man blocks of men-at-arms here with full command, and that includes the Grell Monk with the Blessed Triparch or Typarch, however you want to say it. Pretty much gives the unit stubborn. Their job for this tournament is not to really kill anything, but to hold things up. And that's their job. They're going to be put in a marching column in most games to get up the middle as fast as they can or on the flanks and just tie things up for a few turns. And with stubborn, shield wall, and then the sergeants at arms, which I'll talk about here later, they are going to clog things up, and that's their job. Then I also have 20 Knights of the Realm on foot with hand weapons, shields, and great weapons. So they have the full upgrades and a war banner. They're the bunker. They are also the hard hitters on foot, and I love my foot knights. I mean, I get they have a negative reflect for most Bretonnian players, but I just love them. They're fantastic what they do, and they really held their own in this game or in this tournament very well. Then 3 10-man skirmisher peasant archers in skirmish, bare bones, 50 points each. They're giving me a little range, a little extra maneuverability, and their main job is just to kind of give me some range stuff, give some annoyance, and maybe hold an objective or 2 if they can. In the corner, I have 2 4-man unit of Peg Knights with full command and banners. At the start of this edition, I really didn't do banners, but now standing combat res, they kind of need them. They really need them just to hold things up and to hold the line as best as they can. And they really performed well at this tournament overall. They also could serve as a distraction because a lot of people fear and hate Peg Knights. So they do serve as a small distraction if they don't actually get to kill anything. And then I got 2 units of Grail Knights down here as well. 6-man units, full command. That's the hammer. And they are going to hit hard. That is their job. And they're going to swing around as best they can, maybe up the middle if they need to, whatever the case, but that they are the hammer. And then going on with characters here, so I do have a level 3 prophetess here, and she has lore familiar and a dispel scroll. She's taking elementalism. I feel that Bretonnia is one of those armies that can get away with no spellcasters and do decently well. I take it just to give me a little versatility and, if nothing else, to try to dispel the opponent. But I feel, and I have done this, I just didn't want to do it on 3,000 points, that they can get away with no magic. Though, as we'll see in the first game, magic does tend to do me in quite a bit. Then we have a Paladin over here on foot. He's my BSB. He has the Gromwell Great Helm and the Virtue of Noble Disdain. So anytime anytime his unit charges, he gets to reroll failed hits rolled during the first round of combat. if that enemy unit is ever engaged or ever has a missile unit. And the plain simple truth is, I had 10 extra points and I couldn't find something better, so we gave him that. Not that he'll ever really he never really used it this game, but it was there as an option. And then I got 2 sergeant at arms, and these characters are the most underappreciated characters in all the Bretonnian army list. They are a hoot and a half. I love them. They're cheap. They both have a charm shield and a sword of might, so they just hit harder. They have a little armor piercing, and what they do is they make those men at arms just better. What they do, so men at arms, right? They have the stubborn because of the monk there. They also have shield wall. And shield wall is awesome. If you lose a round of combat, you can give ground automatically if you use the shield in the combat, but that's 1 time per game. And stubborn is the first time that you have to take a break test. You can just fall back and get order without taking the break test. With the sergeant, he has the ability that if you take a break test, instead of falling back and get order, and you roll a fall back and get order, instead of falling back and get order, you can choose to give ground. And that's all the time. That's not a one-time thing. That's an all-the-time kind of thing. And it's really helped them out. It just makes them better. And on top of that, since he has Warband and he has Peasant Levy and a bunch of other things, his leadership stacks with the peasants for every rank. So he's leadership 7, and everybody else stacks, which means they get to leadership 10 pretty quick. And I don't have to keep a knight near them, because with that sergeant, all of a sudden, they're really good. And they got a high leadership. You're talking about a leadership 8 with just 1 rank, or leadership 10 with 3 ranks. I mean, it's pretty awesome in there. And they do a great job. Then I have a Baron on a Barded Pegasus. The first time I've really put a character of that caliber on a Barded Pegasus. Typically, I've done a Royal Peg, but Royal Pegs aren't nearly as good for what they do, and just nearly aren't as tough. And there's a reason why I didn't take a Royal Peg in this tournament. I'll tell you that here when I get to the Duke. But my Baron, he has a Seal of Paravon, so he's always hitting on 3s, regardless of the opponent's weapon skill. He has a great weapon and the Virtue of Stoicism. So what does that mean? Virtue of Stoicism, him and his unit get to re-roll a break test anytime they have to take a break test. So he's practically a mini BSB for what he is. And he's going to go join a unit of Peg Knights during this game. And then lastly, we have the Duke. And the Duke is the big hefty dog here. He's on a Hippogriff. I wanted somebody with just more survivability. And a Royal Peg just doesn't do it anymore. Because on a Royal Peg, he can't join Peg Knights. He has to be by himself. He doesn't have skirmish. He's a monster. I mean, it's just variety. If I'm going to take a monster, daggone it, let's take something with a little bit more wounds for just a few extra points. When I say a few extra, Royal Hippogriff is 70. This guy is like 125. I mean, it's just way worth. It's way, or sorry, 120. With Bardian's 135. He's just more. And you get more for it. You gain terror. You gain a variety of things. I mean, it's just better. And that Hippogriff is, a monstrous creature like the Royal Peg, but it's just better for what it is, for the points. And it gives you more wounds, better toughness, a variety of things. But, and this guy's job is going to go eat up units. That's his job. After play testing, I've come to the conclusion that this guy he's not going to be a character killer. That's not his job. He's not, not that he can't do it, but he's just not going to do it well. So equipment, he has heavy armor shield. He's on a Hippogriff with Barding, so he has that 3-up armor save, and I made him super killy. So I did give him the Dawnstone, which is his only defensive measure, so he gets to re-roll armor saves when he fails them, which did come in handy a few times in here. Of any armor save of a 1, he gets to re-roll, and I had that happen a few times, so that was a perk, and that really helped. But on him, I gave him the Dawnstone. I gave him first off the Virtue of Knightly Temper, And anybody who knows me knows that that thing gets me D3 extra attacks on a charge and hatred on all of my attacks. And on top of that, I gave him the Crackling Blade, which is D6 extra attacks plus 1 strength AP1. So why does that matter? Because in this situation, in this game, if he rolls perfect on everything, his model, not just the Duke, but his model, including the Hippogriff attacks, is going to max out at 21 attacks for in a game or in a round. And that's a lot for him. If you count just the Duke's attacks, he's going to max out at 14 attacks just by himself. And if he rolls perfect, again, that's if he rolls perfect everything. And at strength 6, AP1, because he's strength 5 base, he's scary. And there is a few times in this game where he just comes in and he wipes out tons of stuff. But he's not going to take out a character necessarily. Not that he can't, but with an AP of 1, you know, they're just going to get that extra save on there. They're going to get their armor save. So if they had like a 2-up armor save, let's say, well, now they're a 3-up armor save, which is still very doable. But that's not his job. His job is not to kill characters. His job is to kill units, and pretty either chunky units or heavy units, but units that he has a decent chance maybe come in with a unit of Pegs or Grail Knights and just wipe them out. So that's my list. So game one was Warriors of Chaos, and not to spoil anything, but woof, this was a rough game. What a way to open the tournament. So on here, guy I played, really awesome fella, Hernan Rodriguez, great guy, loved playing him. But kind of starting off with what he has here. So we're going to go from left to right to start of what he had. So the very first thing on the far left over there, he had 18 Marauders. Nothing special about them. You know, they're in skirmish, they're Chaos Cult, none there, but he has full command and light armor and shields. They're really just to, secure things. He has 9 Marauder Horsemen, which are not on the table because they're in ambush, and they didn't do a darn thing in this game, to be quite honest. He has 8 Forsaken, continuing on there from the left to the right. He has a gigantic Chaos Spawn, with the Spawn of Nurgle on there, giant Spawn of Nurgle. He has a Dragon Ogre by itself there. Which was, pretty hefty. He has a unit of Dragon Ogres, 3 Dragon Ogres running around with heavy armor and great weapons. Again, nothing fantastic, but they're there. Another gigantic Chaos Spawn. He has 8 Forsaken, multiple weapons, hand weapons, and Forsaken of Corn, so they get extra attacks when they charge in. He has another 3 things of Dragon Ogres, and behind those Dragon Ogres, this is the scary unit. There's 15 Chaos Warriors in there. And these Chaos Warriors have Mark of Zinch. They have the Brazen Collar and the Banner of the Swirling Wind. And he puts practically all of his characters in there. all of his characters. He puts his Sorcerer Lord in there, all 3 of his Sorcerer Lords in there, with Spell Familiar. One of them has the Skull of Catan. All of them have Mark of Zinch, Tomb of the Dark Gods, Rod of the Down, and they're just and I didn't realize, but that is his heavy hitter. And that thing, I would arguably say, single-handedly killed about half my army. That thing, and I'll go into more detail as the game goes on, but that unit single-handedly killed almost half of my units, because of the combinations of spells that he had. He could give them fly and then reserve move. So here they are. They're going to fly up. They're going to shoot. He has like 4 blue fires in there and 2 fireballs on top of that, plus another spell that's a range thing that's strength 5. I mean, it hurts, and we're doing. You're going to see just how dangerous that thing is. And then on the far right there, he has another gigantic chaos spawn. So that's what he has. And then you can't really see it, but behind the building, there's an aspiring champion on a Gorbeast chariot, and that's his BSB. He also has a Monsters Hunters Tapestry, which, I saw that a lot in this game, and just nothing really came of it. That was not the danger part, but the unit with everything else was. So, but anyway, so this is the end of turn 1. So the way I did these battle reports, because of just how big the games are going on and how much was going on, at the end of each turn, so my opponent would do his turn, then I would do a turn, I took a picture. That's how we did these things, just to make it easier and to try to make this as short as we can. But if you notice, something's missing over here. I had two things of Grail Knights over there, and turn 1 he puts fly on his Warriors of Chaos and reserve move. So he flies up. He shoots all of his blue fire and fireballs into both of those units and then reserves back with fly. And he killed my Grail Knights to a man. And it just sucked. Turn 1, they were dead. Just didn't have a chance. It was painful. Because the initial plan, since my initial thought was he was so weak, I was going to fly up my Grail Knights coming around here. And then with my Peg Knights come swooping in and do a little bit more, and then this side as well. But that didn't come to fruition when turn 1, 600 plus points is killed off the back. And that was a very painful, rude awakening. And my whole mentality changes all of a sudden. So 500 points are dead just off the back of this turn 1. And oof, I'm like, okay, we got to change mentality. So now we're going to go, we're denying objectives. There's 3 objectives here on the table that we got victory points for each turn that we held them. And if we can just keep him at least somewhat occupied and allow my Duke and my Peg Knights to get in, maybe we can do something. So I rush in my Men-at-Arms. There's my blue Men-at-Arms, my red Men-at-Arms. They rush up. The game plan is they're going to get in there. They're going to just hold things up enough for all my other knights to get in position. But so moving on to turn 2. So turn 2, a lot of things happened here. My screen of skirmish archers there got caught up by his wonderful random movement of a gigantic spawn, and he just killed him. Didn't last anything, and then got in position out of my Duke. There. He moved up this Dragon Ogre far up that he's out of the line of sight of my Duke. So now my Duke is caught out of position and can't see anything. So I'm like, okay, we're going to have to go with plan B. Plan B now was this guy is going to charge this Chaos Spawn. And he fails. Miserably fails, actually. Fails so bad he only moves 4 inches. These guys will charge in here on the next turn. And these guys over here got shot to death again by that big block of Chaos Warriors, which are just hiding back here behind the building. They flew up, they did their shots again and flew back. And they took enough wounds that they had to flee in the process. And that's them rallied. They did rally, but I got one guy with 1 wound left in my Baron. That thing right there is their version of the Pillar of Fire. Doesn't do anything. this entire game. Doesn't move anything. I managed to get rid of it, and it just doesn't do nothing. But no, this is painful. He charges his ogres in here, kills a couple of my men-at-arms, and they just give ground. I chose to negate stubborn because I had and I rolled double ones on there, and I'm like, oh, we're just gonna give ground. So forget that mess. We're gonna give ground. And just try to hold things up more. But no, so far he's just running all over the place. I haven't killed a thing. He's killed 500 points, and he's about to get another couple hundred points here, and I'm just like, oh golly, this is a rough game. Duke failed the charge. I'm like, nothing's getting in. So we're having a rough go at it. The only highlight of my thing was this dragon ogre took an arrow to the eye and got a wound on him. That was the highlight. One of my archers got an arrow through and shot him in the eye. So that was the highlight of my turn. But other than that, it was a rough go around. So here we are on turn 3. Turn 3, his dragon ogres lose. They give ground, they back up just a little bit. I move my peg knights over here to just hide them, try to get them out of shot of that big block, which you can kind of now see over here. His game plan is he's going to move this thing in, which it didn't move at all. It just struggled to move. And then this guy was going to come in and sweep or take out my archers here, whatever the case. Battle over here didn't go so well. My peg knights charged in, did like no wounds because he had regen, and he killed 3 of my peg knights, and then they flee off the board, or they flee, he catches them, and it's done. I try again to charge with this guy, and doesn't do anything. He fails, and he moves again. So it's just, my Duke just couldn't make charges. I mean, albeit long charges, but with a movement of 9, with Swift Stride, I mean, I should have made a 14-inch charge and just couldn't do it. So it's still pretty rough, but the tide is slowly going to begin to even out just a little bit. And then this is turn 5. So turn 5, a lot of things happen here. Duke does manage to charge into the unit of dragon ogres that moved up. He kills 1.5 of them. They flee back. He catches them, does combat again, and finishes them off. They die. This peasant unit gets attacked by 3 gigantic chaos spawn, and they are just holding out here. They're holding out, and they're a beast. They're being tough. They did shield wall and making great leadership tests, because his chaos spawn didn't do tons of injuries against he kind of woofed actually on his attacks against my men-at-arms here, and I end up just giving ground, and it turned out to really in my favor. But that would be short-lived, because the next turn, on turn 6, they get killed by them. But over here, they beat the dragon ogres. The men-at-arms die. They beat the dragon ogres, chase them down, catch them in the flee because they get caught by this building here. And now we're here. So this is our thing at the end of turn 5. With the exception of this unit right here, they're gone. But turn 6, the way this is going to play out, Duke is going to come up and kill a chaos spawn. This unit gets wiped out. He flies forward. This unit gets shot to death here. He, in his infinite wisdom, decides to move his chariot through the woods because he has a spell that can shoot my Duke. And my Baron does do a bunch of wounds on this guy. So this guy has 1 wound when he moves through the woods. And when he moves through the woods, he has to take a dangerous terrain test, which he failed. And then he failed any save, and he took a wound, and he died because of that. So his So I got the points for the BSB getting killed and for the chariot dying because he died going through the woods. He didn't need to do that because this block of dangerousness just shoots what's left of them, annihilates them, and annihilates my Duke because he moves down here. And I forgot to get a picture on turn 6 there. But I mean, it took him 6 turns, but he tabled me at the end of this game. And it was more than a resounding victory in his favor. Just he got all the points for this. I got none of the points. So I instantly moved to the bottom. And this was just a rough way to open up the game. Very rough. So kind of reminded me a little bit of last year. I had the similar situation with Beast Chaos, but it was, or Beastman, and it was definitely closer that game because I at least wiped out a good chunk of his army. But this one, I took out a chariot, I took out 2 units of dragon ogres and a gigantic chaos spawn, and that was my whole thing. Didn't do anything else. So just didn't do anything else. I mean, it was kind of rough. It was rough, this game. I also had to change dice. If you saw, my blue dice were just not rolling at all. I was rolling 1s and 2s the entire time, and I got changed them out for the red, and I stuck with the red for the rest of the tournament. They did fantastic. But so that's game 1. Very painful, very fun. It was fun. Took 6 turns, but he did end up beating me and tabling me at the end of the game. So game 2. Now I forgot to take the next 2 games. I forgot to take setup pictures, but I'll say this. I played Tim Flanders, and he is awesome. I love Tim Flanders. I played him last year. He brought an Empire army last year, beautifully painted army last year, and he brought a beautifully painted orcs and goblins list, and night goblins actually is what he brought. So there's not a single orc on this field. It's all night goblins, and did just beautifully painted. Great guy, great game, wonderful to play. And you're going to see just how fun his list is. Lots of goblins and giants and things of that nature, and just fantastic just overall with it. So, but anyway, let's go through his list. So he has a lot of heroes on this board. If I remember right, he has 2 night goblin war bosses. One's on a giant cave squig, which is over here in this unit. That one on the giant cave squig is over there in that unit. Then he has another goblin war boss, which is over here in this unit to give that little extra beef of character. He has 2 goblin odd knobs, so they're wizards, level 4 and a level 3. The level 4 is over here in this unit. The level 3, if I remember right, is hanging out right there in the back. And his job is to just catch units and help him out. Then he has another, or give him spells and help out. He has another goblin big boss on here. It's his battle standard bearer, and you can probably see it. It's actually right there in the back by itself. Just hanging out, giving that extra leadership, which goblins need because we all know they have low leadership in there. And then he has 2 additional goblin big bosses. One of them is over here in this unit, and the other one's right there in that unit. Again, to help that extra leadership and just get their leadership beefed up. Then he has 2 units of 30 night goblin mobs. One is sitting on the hill, if I remember correctly. One's over here on the hill, and the other one's over here on the flank. The ones with bows are over here, and then the other one has shields and spears. He has another 24 night goblins with spears and shields in there as well, and they're right there in the middle. And the 2 30s have 3 fanatics because you need 10 night goblins for 1 fanatic in there. And the 24 has 2 fanatics in there. And I love fanatics. I know what they can do, and I'm slightly terrified of them because that's a lot of fanatics running around on the board that really just are going to be in a nuisance and going to be a pain. But and then so something he brought that I don't see a lot of, he had 4 or 5 Night Goblin Squig herds on the board. And Squig herds, you just don't see a lot of them, but they suck. I'm going to tell you now. They hit pretty hard on the charge. After that, they're kind of squishy, but they hit pretty hard on the charge there, and they're kind of scattered all around to do things. But again, a lot of random movement in his army too. He has 2 10 goblin or night goblin squig hopper mobs. One has a hand weapons and cavalry spears on a boss, and the other one just has hand weapons. And then he has a 4-man unit of trolls sitting there by the tower, of stone, and they're stone trolls, if I remember right there. And then he has 2 giants. They are represented by these fantastically alternate painted trolls, but one's there and one's there. And again, my mindset is I'm like, okay, I have something that can handle them, just not easily. And then he has 2 things of Mangler Squigs. And one Mangler Squig is there, and the other Mangler Squig is right there. He puts them over there, and I don't have a clear answer for those. We all know how good Mangler Squigs are for their point costs and how bad it sucks when you get hit by them. And then he has 1 mercenary unit. So this big guy here in the middle is a bone grinder giant. And that bone grinder giant, he didn't do what he didn't do what he wanted him to do. He did not roll well on his chart. Unfortunately, and just didn't do nearly as effective against him. So I was very grateful that bone grinder giant didn't do tons, but he just didn't do as much as he probably should have or could have. And then, as you guys could tell, we were a little tight here on deployment again. So much so I had to put a thing of Grail Knights here in the back sideways. So my game plan is this. He has a lot more than I do. He almost double outnumbers me in drops, if I remembered right. And my game plan is if I can get him to funnel right here between these buildings and get my infantry there, my infantry is not going to go anywhere. I hit harder than he does, except for his giants. I have better leadership than he does. And my game plan is if I can hold him here in the middle, he doesn't put anything over here. So I put a unit of Peg Knights to rush around because they can get there. I should have put these guys here in hindsight and try to rush them in. But again, I didn't think they'd just cover the ground fast enough to do it. And then these guys could hold this flank over here because he has a bunch of random movements. And they can hold out. So that's the game plan, which works rather well. We also have a unique scenario ability here where this granary here, whoever burns that at the end or after 2 turns in contact with it gets 200 extra victory points. So turn 1, he moves everything like so where you see it. I move up everything. Nothing's in charge distance. I want him to charge this unit. And I rush this unit up to try to start getting ready to burn the granary as quick as I can. And I'm there turn 1 now. He'll end up getting the victory points because he moves this unit in. Because I got 31 in here and he has 32 guys in there and just barely beats me in count wise. So it sucked. But in any case, doesn't matter. So that's where we are. I'm lining up my Duke here in the middle so he has a clear path. If you want to, you can come over that way just a little bit. But that's the game plan. These guys fly up. He lands a foot of Gork down there. Before my dudes fly up, I think his game plan was that forgetting I'm skirmishing that I could go around it, but maybe it'll scatter. And it did not scatter. That foot of Gork doesn't do anything the whole game. And he only gets it off, I believe, twice, if I remember right. Move these guys up, because again, everything over here, all these hoppers and mobs and everything else have random movement. And I'm trying to keep away because I can't countercharge random movement. So I'm trying to keep a safe distance, force him to move closer, then I'll charge in with my stuff and try to annihilate some things. But so that's turn 1. Turn 2 plays out like so. So these guys, he moves them up. I charge him with my Grail Knights. He moves his Mangler Squig here. I charge up with my Peg Knights out his Mangler Squig. He moves into contact with the granary. Now he outnumbers me, but it still takes 2 turns to burn. My Knights of the Realm on foot fail to charge, or correction, he fails to charge my Knights of the Realm on foot, and I fail to charge back. It's too far. That's too far of a distance for me to get. My Grail Knights are in position. Maybe if my idea is if these guys fall back, I have this here to help out. He moves his Squig Hoppers over, charges these, got my Peg Knights. They die to a man. I overrun and hit this block that was on the hill. They lose, and they fall back in good order. And I couldn't quite catch him in that round. So it was not quite enough. Wasn't able to roll high enough to catch him. So, but did some wounds. We move up. We're all good. And that's the thing here is Mangler Squig here rolls random movement and moves there. He gets a couple other spells up, but that's it. I stop him from casting Foot of Gork. Because we were closer at that point, and I used my Fated Dispel and I stopped him. So, but that's where we sit at the end of turn 2 here. Turn 3 plays out like this, and a lot of stuff happens in turn 3. So he ends up shooting with like Itchy Nuisance at my Peg Knights, which ends up just killing them. I just couldn't save anything with my Peg Knights. He wins combat here. He falls back in good order and rallies because he doesn't double outnumber me when he does that. My Grail Knights over here defeats his knobs. They flee off the board. We reposition and charge this way on his turn. And then his Mangler Squid that was over here charges my Grail Knights and kills them. We do lose like 2 Grail Knights in that battle over here when we charge over here on my turn. And then they end up getting killed to a man. I have a love-hate relationship with Grail Knights. Grail Knights are fantastic. I mean, I get it. Their weapon skill 6, strength 5, toughness 5 or 4, leadership 9, immune to psychology, 2 attacks. My beef is this. For the points that I pay for them, I should have one of 2 things. Either A, a better armor save, so a 2+ instead of a 3, or 2 wounds. One of the 2. I would be happy with either one. Doesn't matter which one, but one of those 2 things. That's greatly needed because I mean, and everyone's like, we got weapon skill 6, which doesn't matter because almost everything in this game is going to be hitting you on 4s. There's very few things going to be hitting you on 5s. And it just doesn't do much. And I like Grail Knights, but I never take them on smaller point games for that reason. Because they're an 3+ armor. They just don't do well. And it shows when you get things like Itchy Nuisance that you're getting a 6-up ward, and you just can't do things very well. He does release all of his Fanatics this turn, on the start of his turn. And that's the other thing. My Peg Knights over here took a lot of damage from the 2 Fanatics over there. And then he releases Fanatics this way. He released Fanatics into the Grail Knights too. And just, ow. It just does a lot of damage and kills a lot of things. Now, from here on out, they're not going to do anything anymore because he's going to roll doubles and or hit a building or a piece of terrain from here on out. So he had one solid turn where all those fanatics just got released, and it was painful to be on the receiving end. And I like fanatics; they were fun. I did get I'm not gonna lie, I was very relieved that they started just blowing up after this turn, but nevertheless, it was still fun. So this is where we are. My Duke ends up killing his Bone Grinder Giant in the middle. And he timbers on my Duke and does does 3 wounds on my Duke there. That's why he's down to 4 wounds in that. So that was a little painful. The trolls got caught, or sorry, the trolls got stuck when they tried to charge. If you remember here, that's where they're at. They got stuck. They couldn't make that gap. So troll is dead, or sorry, the Bone Grinder Giant is dead. My guys move up, hits the trolls, ends up beating moves up. With that Bone Grinder Giant died. A couple of things had to make panic tests. The trolls failed. They had to flee in the process, which is right back there. These guys got fled through and they failed. They had to flee and they almost fleed off the board. We're within like a half inch, and I was hoping they would get there, but not quite. I killed his wizard in my turn of combat, and I decided I'm not taking chances. We're sending the peasants that direction. They may not be able to beat them, but daggone it, they're going to continue just chasing them down. At least that's the game plan. And over here, this building is going to go into his favor. It's just going to go into his favor. These guys make their charge in against that giant. And he has 2 Mangler Squigs left that are kind of bouncing around. They do have some wounds on them, but it's going to be, it's, at this point, the tides have turned in my favor, and I do smell blood in the water. So we're gonna start mass rushing. My peasants shoot some arrows, don't do too much, but they do just a little bit of things, and we're just keeping them there because we're not gonna lose points. So turn 4 plays out like this. He rallies up here. I charge in. I'm not going to win that combat. I just know it. Because he gets a couple of spells off. They're reduced to like initiative 1 with one of his spells, which he casts that. I forget what it's called, but I believe it's Itchy Nuisance, where he takes their initiative down to 1, their strength down to 2. It's painful. He did the same thing to my Peg Knights, which is why they got killed. This giant is barely standing still. He'll die within the turn because my Grail Knights have charged in on the flank. These guys are holding their own. This unit killed the Mangler Squig, interestingly enough, and killed the big block of Night Goblins there that he just didn't have a chance. So now we have the objective, so we're going to get points with that. And then my Duke comes in, kills the other Mangler Squig. And my prime target is this guy. We're going to kill that BSB. That's the game plan anyway. And maybe overrun into this block of unit. Shoot a couple of arrows. Doesn't do much, but that's the game plan. And then, he still has fanatics there that are still living, but they're not doing anything at this point. And then turn 5. So we charge his BSB. He flees through. Ends up rallying, or correction, on his turn, he moves him out of the way. On his turn. He moves him out. He's like, nope, we're going over here. Because he can't survive against the Duke and that Grail Knight unit. This giant dies. And he does timber and he falls on what's left of my Knights of the Realm. Very painful. So I got 2 Knights of the Realm, a BSB, and my Wizard in there. So it's pretty painful wise there. This unit is very much dead. This unit rallied, but and killed the peasants outright there. And this is the game. So the game is mine, and I got a resounding victory for it. And I mean, it was fun. I did move. One thing I forgot, I did move this Peg Knight out of the way, just down here to conserve points and hide him. Because he's above that 25%. There was only 4 in there to begin with. So he's above that 25%. And we're not going to give an easy target. So we're just going to hide him behind the hill. So he hides. And this is where we end. Ends up being a resounding victory for me. I kill 2 giants, 2 bone grinders, and a mangler squig in this game. I consider that a very big moral victory because those things are just not easy to kill when you don't have a distinct like monster slayer on the table anywhere. But I mean, it was fun. We enjoyed it. Ignore that dice. That dice was stuck on turn, but it was turn 5, and this was the turn that we ended on. Turn 6, we just did some maneuvering, but nothing really. Everybody kind of failed their charges, and that was it. So resounding victory. Definitely a better recovery than game 1. Game 1 was rough, and I'm very grateful that I was able to get that recovery victory back. But so game 3, this is the end of the tournament here. Played High Elves, and for those who know, High Elves are the bane of my existence. I dread playing any elf. I just do. Elves are tough. I mean, granted, they are lacking in some areas, and Daniel, this gentleman, I mean, he brought a different list than what I've seen a lot of elf players bring in here. I forgot to take pictures of the setup. But again, nothing changed too much from the setup and the movement of turn 1. So what he has, again, starting from the top left to the center there, he has, I thought, a couple of interesting choices, to say the least, in here. But so he has 5 Reavers over here on the side. He has an Eagle. He has another Eagle there. He has 2 blocks of Swords of Hoeth there. I believe they're 24-man blocks each. They both have the Ring of Fury. They both have a Banner Lord, and they're drilled. One has the Hunter's Tapestry. The other one has the Totem of Wrath in there. And then what I found really interesting, I don't see this a lot, he has a big 40-man block right there in the middle of Elven Spearmen. Big block of them. And it's like, okay. And that kind of took me off guard a little bit. Not that Spearmen are great, but it's like, I got to send something in there that's just going to chew them because they're not going to run away quickly. Then he has 13 archers there. This was also the scenario where we had to leave 1 core choice in reserve that could come on. So he has 2 units of archers. One's off the board. I left 1 unit off the board because they're in reserve. And then as far as characters go, he brought a lot, again, what I thought were interesting choices. He brought 2 Archmages in there. Both of them are in the 2 units of Swords of Hoeth over there on the left side of the dragon, if you're looking at the dragon. One's a level 3, one's a level 4. One has Elementalism, one has Illusion. They both have the Obsidian Lodestone. One has Sacred Incense, one has a Becalming Orb. He has a Noble in there, which is in full plate. He is the BSB in there, and he's in this, if I remember the unit correctly, I believe he's in this block of Swords of Hoeth, that his BSB. And again, I don't know, I would have probably moved it over to the center a little bit, but tomato, each their own on it. Elves don't really need too many. They have high leadership, to be quite honest. They do really well. So, and that may be what I was thinking. He wasn't too worried about it because his elves have high leadership. And then he has a prince on a dragon. And this guy, I don't have a clear answer for that dragon. He does the classical thing where he gives them, he has a 3-up armor save, a 5-up ward, and a 5-up regen on him. So I don't have a clear answer. Yes, my Duke could possibly do it, but every time I send my Duke in there, unless I have high armor penetration, it just doesn't seem to ever do much. One of our local guys here, Cody, does the same thing, a 3-up, 5-up, 5-up, which, I mean, who wouldn't? You get 3 saves. That's pretty good. But I just don't have a clear answer for that. So my goal is this. I am going to try to avoid this guy till the very end and pick off all the other stuff. And then, so I line up accordingly. I put my 1 unit Pick Knights over here. I put my Grail Knights there. Archers on the hill. Archers in the woods. 1 unit of Men-at-Arms there. Got my Foot Knights there. I do put my other unit of Grail Knights here in the middle. And my Duke I put here to start, along with a unit of Men-at-Arms and then my other Peg Knights over here. He flat out tells me, because he hasn't won a game yet. The last game was close, he said, but so he's like, I'm just going to straight up come at you. I'm going to aim for the center. So again, we're going to, I outnumber him in drop. So my game plan is to rush him up, get him tied into combat here, take out his flank, move these guys around, take this flank out, maybe get him in a pinned here with a charge and in the flank, and then swing around and do the same. That's the game plan. It works really well in hindsight. It does. His units didn't hold up as much as I thought they would, but in either case, he does some magic off of me, or he moves everything up, moves this eagle forward, moves everybody up into position. He does a few wounds, if I remember right, on this unit. I think he kills a guy, if I remember correctly. And then I do like a wound on his eagle. So turn 1, not a lot of shooting. He tried to shoot my Peg Knights over here. Doesn't do much. But that's turn 1. Turn 2. So this is kind of what happens here a little bit. He charges his Swords of Hoth here. Boom. Beats my Men-at-Arms. They give ground. Pretty far, actually. And if you remember, they're pretty high up, so they're going to fall back about right there. And he pursues and follows. Gets into combat. And then he shoots at my Peg Knights over here. Doesn't do anything. He does a wound to my Peg Knights on this side with his archers. Gets a single arrow through. And then marches everything else. He does not charge that dragon, which I found very interesting. I did put a spell down to block his line of sight, but he got rid of it. I mean, on his turn. Pretty handily, actually. But he didn't charge that dragon. I don't know what his thought was. Maybe he was afraid of this guy, of my Duke, coming in with all those attacks. Because, I mean, like we said, this guy potentially has 21 attacks. This model. So it's 14 attacks from the Duke, and the rest are coming from the Hippogriffs. So that's a lot when it comes down to it. But I don't know what his thought was. He didn't charge that in. So I took the advantage. I charged this Grail Knight unit into the side. They got the flank, and I charged this Knights of the Realm. They got the front. And between all of those attacks and all of that standard combat, or all those attacks, I kill him down to a man. They don't even get to leave. They're obliterated. They're wiped out. He had some pretty bad saving throws, to be quite honest. Didn't manage to save them in there. So we kill him. We reorganize and reform into this position. This guy takes another wound from the archers being shot at. My Peg Knights charges Reavers. We beat them handily. He holds. and then I overrun into the other Swords of Hoeth, which is where they are. These guys failed their charge. They couldn't get in there for whatever reason. Just bad dice rolling. And then these guys, these two, charged in. He was there. We charged in. And this is where this guy just shined. That dude, that model, almost rolled perfectly on the first round. He rolled 19 of that model. He got 19 attacks in, 19 hits. And out of those 19 hits, 17 of them wounded and killed all those spearmen. Just killed him, which took him down to 21 off the back. And then my Grail Knight came in and did another 10 wounds on top of it. So he has 11 guys left in that block after a round of combat. And they fall back in good order. But, oof, man, it was rough. It was rough. I decided to keep up the momentum because I was hoping they'd fall back far enough that I'm out of this guy's line of sight. And I'm not. The tail end of these Grail Knights is barely in that dragon. And I'm like, okay, so that's we're not gonna do that. He's gonna, in my game plan, I'm like, so he's gonna charge me here. We'll kill them. He'll kill a bunch of these guys. He'll probably overrun, and maybe the next turn I can rearrange that I can get in his line of sight. Maybe get some peasants in there. Who knows? But that's the game plan. So turn 3. So instead of charging the Grail Knights, he decides to charge his dragon into the Knights of the Realm. Now I know they're not touching. But he makes the charge. He gets there. So we are touching. It's just, that dragon head sits so far in front and just doesn't quite line up those bases nice enough. But he's there. He makes it on his turn. We wipe out what's left of that unit. They do pass a leadership test. I'm not worried about it, to be quite honest. These guys reform on my turn. We do some combat over here. He does a wound. I do 10 wounds. Or not 10 wounds. Sorry. I do 5 wounds in there. And we tie. So we just sit there. We end up tying at the end of the day. Even though he outnumbers me, we tied. I reform these guys. Just move them up a little bit. These guys try another charge and fail. They take another arrow to the face, which is why there's one less Peg Knight in that unit. So he kills a Peg Knight with arrows. And just like, golly, that my Peg Knights have not had successful charges this game. And that's the end of this turn. His reserves come on there. My reserves will come on the next turn, and we're just going to keep them down here. Because we also get scored for every quadrant we control on this board. And right now, I'm definitely in control of the majority of the quadrants right now. So there's just another picture of the same turn. All right, so turn, I believe this is 5, I think, right? Hang on. There's 1, 2, 3. Turn 4, sorry. So turn 4, they finally make it. He does a shot, does a wound, doesn't kill a guy. They finally make their charge on my turn. This dragon just gets pinned with these guys in the combat because he does not kill them, and he ends up just giving ground. He does lose combat against him the first round, and he gives ground. So he just backs up 2 inches, and then we charge in. These guys charge in from the flank. My Duke charges in, gets on the rear back here. And then these guys on the back are dealing with Peg Knights. And and my Grail Knights from the front, and then gets another Grail Knights. It wasn't quite on the back. It was in the side, so gets a flank charge. And at this point, we're just rolling to see what's going to go on. Because this is going to make or break his game at this point, depending on how everything rolls out going on here. And, I got a bunch of bonuses racking in. My Grail Knight, and I'm feeling still pretty good. My Grail Knights are still in full strength. My Peg Knights have taken some wounds, obviously. My everything else has, and my Duke has done 2 self-inflicting wounds. Let's be clear. He has 2 wounds on him right now. So he has 5 left of his initial 7. But they're self-inflicting wounds because of the crackling blade. We rolled 2 6s in a row on him. So he gets 6 attacks, extra attacks, but he's taking a wound for each of those attacks. So he has done 0 wounds to my Duke. I've done all the wounds to my Duke. And it's fun. He's laughing because I'm just injuring my own guy. But nevertheless, it was still fun and cool. And he really thought that was a great build and a great little characteristic of the weapon on here. But at the end of this turn, and again, same round of combat here, just different picture. At the end of this turn, this is what happens. So yeah, this is turn 4. These guys wipe out. They do 2 more wounds. They knock out 2 more Peg Knights. They get wiped out to a man. We kill everybody. Between the 2 Grail Knights and the Peg Knights, we kill them to a man. So those Swords of Hoeth, they die outright. They get killed. My Peg Knights over here, they kill the guys on the hill. These guys flee consequently off the table. The archers that came in, because they were so close, they fled. They failed their leadership check and they fled off. This dragon, he takes a whopping 2 wounds on this thing. A whopping 2 wounds. Of all the wounds done to him, I think he had I forget how many wounds actually got in on him, but it was somewhere around like 15 or so. And he saves all but 2. I mean, just phenomenal dice rolling, but he takes 2 wounds. He doesn't do a lot of wounds back. He does kill 6 men-at-arms, but between the standing combat res of this unit and the wounds that got in, he ends up losing. He has to take a leadership check, and he fails. Bad. We did this combat first, because this is where his BSB was, and I'm like, I don't want him to re-roll that leadership test. We're going to take the gamble. So we killed the BSB, so he doesn't get a re-roll because of that. And he fled. My Duke chases him down and catches him, and he dies. So, and after this, he's like, the game's yours, buddy. He gives me the game. He gives me the rest of the points. He has 1 eagle left on the table. He took it off, but he has 1 eagle left on his army, and he's just like, it's yours. I concede. It's your victory. So we end up getting the max amount of points for this game, for this scenario, and a win for the Bretonians. And I do feel bad tabling him. I don't like tabling anybody, really. But at the same time, it was really cool seeing everything just work how it's supposed to. It was great. It was fun seeing the Duke getting that many attacks off and getting that many hits, that many wounds, seeing the Grail Knights do their thing to their full potential, and everything just clicking. Spells going off like they were supposed to. I mean, just everything clicking how it's supposed to. So I do feel bad that I did table him, but at the same time, it was cool seeing everything done. And unfortunately, he just didn't kill a whole lot. So he gets no victory points for this game. Because I still have everything on the table. I haven't lost a unit. I got 1 Peg Knight in 1 unit, so he gets points for that, but he everything else is still very much alive on this table. So, and then at the end of the day, we ended up taking 7th overall. We got Herald of Order. As y'all saw the picture there, we got Herald of Order, which is the highest ranked good guy. The first 6 were all bad guys. Every single one of them. They were all bad guys. And to add to poetic justice, what was my prize besides the medal? Two things of high elves. High elf, I believe it was a high elf mage set and a high elf lord commander set there. So I'm like, oh great. I guess I got to start putting high elves together now. But overall, it was fun. I enjoyed, and I hope you enjoyed this battle report, guys. Again, let me know. Sorry if we did the brief synopsis version again, trying to keep these things at the longest an hour. Really, the goal is like 40, 30 to 45 minutes. But with 3 games, trying to get it all punched in, that was the game plan. So, other announcements, guys. Don't forget we have a tournament at the end of May here at Hobbytown. We are the ones running it. The Hobbytown's just hosting it for us. It is free entry. If you want to make donations, great. If not, we get that too. Any donation goes towards Rock Lava, but it is a free entry. It is 750 points. We're going to do a Battle March tournament, but we're using the Grand Melee setup. So we are limiting how big of characters can come in to this thing. So 0 to 1 per 1,000 points rules apply since we're doing Grand Melee. But everything else is still fine. You are limited to how many points can go on a character and everything else. So again, trying to make it a little more interesting, maybe bring some smaller characters you just don't normally do. But that's the game plan. We are going to use the campaign out of the Raising of the Westerlands. So your guys will get better for every victory that they get. Consequently, you're going to get 5 games. And they're 1-hour games because 750 points. And the last tournament proved that, well, an hour is plenty of time for it. So 750 points, guys. Sign up in May. We are limited on spots on that one. We got 12 spots and 6 have already signed up. So if you haven't, please sign up, guys, and I'll see you at our next event. Catch you on the flip side, and guys, have a great evening. Bye.